My name is Dr. Erig. I go by Doc at South Gwinnett High School. I am a geometry teacher, but I somehow do really good connecting with kids in terms of having you access resources. So I just found out about your test this morning. That's why we're going to take care of this now. This review sheet, if you don't have it at home, you can go on to gwinnettmath.com that you already went to, and you'll see a link, and you can print that out if you want to. Pretty much we're going to be done in the next about 1 hour, and whatever we get done in an hour, that's it, because at 8 o'clock I'm going to be doing Algebra 2. The protocol is if you have a question, you need to ask it. You can ask it by either typing it out, or you can unmute your microphone and then talk. And then after you ask your question, you can mute it. You are allowed to ask as many questions as you need. You can be brave. It's totally fine. When I have longer sessions, we typically do Kahoot. If you heard about that, we will not be doing Kahoot today only because you have a test tomorrow. If I had known ahead of time about your test, we would have probably done one, and usually we might have done two, and one of them would have had a Kahoot in it. So that's pretty much where we're going. So this is Algebra 1. It is November 4th, and the smiley faces are there for fun. All right, let's take a look. So our first question is, what is the value of y in the following system of equations? Now, system of equations are really important because this is when you have two variables. So one of the questions I did earlier that you'll see is about, like, if we have buses and vans, that means you have two variables, two things you're talking about. If you own a restaurant and you are serving Coca-Cola and you're serving Sprite, you have two types of drinks. How much Coca-Cola, how much Sprite do you sell? That's why multiple variables are important. There's several different ways to solve these types of problems. One of the ways to solve it is by doing something that's called substitution. And if you don't know that, you should write that word down, substitution. The other thing you should be writing right down are these two problems, because it's going to be a lot easier for you to solve the problem if you're doing it along with me. So we're talking about substitution. Now, with substitution, I say, okay, how can I get one variable on one side by itself? That's what's super important. Now, I'm really fortunate because in this first equation, the y is already by itself. It's already what's called isolated. And that makes substitution way more easier. So if I have y, anytime I see a y, I'm really going to write in 4x minus 1. That's what y equals. So when I look at this problem here, I've got 3x. Ooh, we don't like that. I've got 3x plus 2y equals 20. Now notice how I emphasized y and I left a space. That space is what is super important when you do these problems, because that's when we substitute in. If you think about basketball, person's playing, gets injured, what happens? There's a substitution. The person's still important, but right now someone else is stepping in. In this case, the person who's stepping in is 4x minus 1. The reason why 4x minus 1 is stepping in is because it tells us here, anytime you see a y, it's 4x minus 1, okay? It's like you have a designated hitter coming in. So here, I'm going to write down 4x minus 1 in place of the y. And again, that's because all I did was substitute. 4x minus 1. Now that I've done that substitution, then what I can do is I can solve the problem. So our first step for substitution is we need to get one variable by itself. It's called isolate the variable. So you should be writing this down. Isolate the variable. So that means either get x or y by itself. That's your first step. Your next step that you need to do is you need to plug it in. And years ago, there used to be a commercial called plug it in, plug it in. It was those air fresheners. That's what we're doing. We're substituting or plug it in the 4x minus 1 in for y. Our third step is to solve. So someone type out or put your mic live. What's my first step to solve this? What should I do? Who's got the first step to solve this problem? Hey, thank you. We got a couple people doing it. Combine like terms and would you distribute first? All of those, yes. So we're going to distribute first, and distributing is going to lead into combining like terms. Okay, so just how some people texted and some people talked, that's exactly what you guys should be doing the whole time, because this is for you, it's not for me. So I've got 2 times 4x, which is 8x. And I've got the 2 times -1. And in another video, I taught you about the importance of when you distribute, you go to each one of the terms, but then when you hit the parenthesis, you stop. So the 2 goes to the 4x, the 2 goes to the 1, and then it stops. Everything else just drops down because we didn't have to do anything. There wasn't any distribution. So that just drops down here. And then we do what was suggested by Alan, is we combine our like terms. So I've got 3x plus 8x. Don't get crazy with the x's. Think of money. $3 plus $8 is $11. So here I'm going to write down 11x, $11. Here there's x's. There's no x here, so I can't do anything right now. All I do is rewrite it. Now what's going to happen is I need to move that -2 over because I'm trying to isolate the x. I'm trying to get the x by itself. So again, I'm going to do something called the inverse operation. All it's a fancy word of saying is do the opposite. So here, how it's negative, I have to think, okay, what's the opposite of subtraction or the opposite of negative? Positive. So I'm going to put +2 on both sides. Now for some of you, you'll be like, Doc, I already know how to do this problem. It's so easy. I get it. Bear with me. You're going to get to parts that you don't know. Don't just hang up. But for some of you, you need us to go step by step like this. And I'm going to post these notes again tonight, so you'll be able to look at these yourself. So anyway, these cancel. So I'm left with 11x. And they cancel because what's -2 plus 2? 0. So that's why I mean it cancels. It means it becomes 0. Then we have our equals 22. We divide both sides by 11. And so we're left with x equals 2. Here's our problem. We're not done yet. All this tells me is the x value. But just like before, we're doing with linear equations, we have only x, so we had to find what does x equal. Here, because we have an x and because we have a y, we also have to figure out what y equals. Somebody either text, thank you, good job, add 2. Somebody please text or put on your mic, what do we do to find y? Plug it in. Exactly. That's all we're going to do. We're going to go back over and we're going to plug it in. So we're going to plug x in to find y. Okay, so when we come up here, I'm just going to pick the easy equation. The easy equation was y equals 4x minus 1. So now we know that x equals 2. So all we're going to do is substitute. That's the fancy word. Substitute. All we're going to do is substitute that 2 in for x. Then we subtract. And all this y equals just comes on down, and we're left with y equals 7. So if you were to graph the system of equations at 0.27 at x equals 2, y equals 7, that's where the two graphs would intersect. So that is considered your solution. The equation, or the question said, what's the value of y? So truly, to answer the question, the value of y is 7. Okay? If you don't understand it, it's okay. You can watch the video again, and we're going to do other problems just like this. Let's bop down to the next question. Again, if you came in late, if you go to gwinnettmath.com, I've posted this, so you can go ahead if you have a printer at home and print it out if you need to. Next one, what is the solution to these problems? Now, this is going to be doing solving it by something called elimination. And substitution makes a whole lot of sense here, but you could do substitution. But the other thing is, do you notice how one of these is positive and one of these is negative? It's like one of them is opposite. In our other slide, we saw the same thing over here. When we did -2 and +2, we knew that that canceled to 0. So when we look at this problem, when we have positive x and negative x, those just cancel. And those cancel and give us 0. And that's what we're trying to do. We're going to solve for y, and then we'll plug that y back in. So here, our first step is, can we cancel it? And basically, when we cancel, we're looking for opposites. So in this part, our opposites are going to be our positive x plus our negative x. When we add those together, we get 0. Those are our opposites. So I'm going to write this a little bit bigger down here because I've been writing big tonight. So I've got y plus x equals 43. And then I've got y minus x equals negative 12. Now, some of your teachers make you rewrite it into standard form, and they have you put the x first and the y first. You can do that, but that's a lot of work. So I don't really do that. Then all we do is we add. And when we add, we just add straight down. We make sure our y's are lined up. In this case, our x's are lined up and our equals are lined up. That's what's most important. We have to make sure everything's lined up. So here I've got y and y, but because there's no number in front of the y, I really know it's a hidden number 1. So when I add this up, I've got 1y plus 1y, which leaves me with 2y. We already know from over here, so then we're going to add going down. We already know from over here that the whole reason of us doing this elimination is because the x's are going to cancel out. So we have positive x plus negative x. It's like 5 plus negative 5. We're going to keep getting 0 every time. So these just disappear. Then we have this when we add these up. And if you have a calculator, 43 plus negative 12 is going to leave you with 31. It's kind of like you have $43, but you go and spend $12 at Cookout. How much money do you have left? You have $31. And I think I only mentioned Cookout because I had a really great chicken sandwich from them the other day. Grilled chicken sandwiches, delicious. All right, these cancel. So now I'm left with y equals 31 over 2. So if I look at my answer choices, there's only one answer choice that has that. What's the one answer that it could be? Yeah, D, that's it. So I can stop right here knowing that D is my answer. So we're add go down, we solve for one variable. Now, we're going to pretend that this wasn't a multiple choice question. So if it wasn't a multiple choice question and we did need to continue solving it, all you're going to do is you're going to just plug it back in again to get the other variable. So basically, if I have y plus x equals 43, I'm just going to real quick do the math. This is going to give me 15.5. So I've got y plus 15.5 equals 43. Then I just subtract. And I'm going to get, I got to do it this way, 16 to, well, I'll still get the same thing, 55.5. So, or 55 over 2. So either way, you can get the same answers. In this case, if we did it, we would get 27.5 as our decimal. And then we could just plug each of those in and see which one matches. Okay, so not difficult. It's either substituting or eliminating. And truly speaking, you can do substitution all the time if you're a pro at that. You can't always do elimination, but you can always do substitution. All right, let's move on to a word problem. This is a little bit higher DOK. It's a little funkity-dunkity. In this problem, it says, the state fair is a popular field trip destination. This year, the senior class at high school A and the senior class at high school B both planned trips there. The senior class at high school A rented and filled 8 vans and 8 buses with 240 students. High school B rented and filled vans with 4 vans and 1 bus with 54 students. Every van had the same number of students in it as did the buses. Find the number of students in each van and bus. So let's look at what we know. We know 2 schools went. We know school A went. And we know school B went. For our purposes, I'm going to have V equals the number of people in the van and B is going to equal the number of people on the bus. So now when I go through these problems, all I do is I read it a little bit slower, and for me, I write over the problem. So how this says 8 vans, this just to me says 8V. The word and means plus. 8 buses means 8B, and with is just another way of saying equal. So for school A, my equation is 8V plus 8B equals 240. If you didn't get it, that's okay. We're going to do it right now again. So now let's look at it for bus high school B. High school B, it says it has 4 vans. So I'm putting V for vans because V stands for the number of people on one van. Plus 1 bus with equals, and then we have our 54. So we've got 4 vans plus 1 bus equals 54. Now this almost looks like 16, so real quick, I'm just going to fix that. And I'm just going to actually write it as B. Okay, now there's no negatives here, so it doesn't make sense for us to do that elimination thing, because then we'd have to be multiplying by a negative number, and it's just too much work. What I do notice is in school B, the bus, is all by itself. So because the bus is all by itself, I'm going to do substitution. So I have to get, okay, here's the bus. There's no coefficient in front of it. So I do need to get it. Technically, it's not by itself yet. I'm going to get it by itself. Whoops. I'm so used to writing X. Let me fix that to V. Okay, guys, if you are, welcome. If you are just signing in, please go make sure you jump into chat and put your name and who your teacher is. Okay, 4V minus V, this cancels to 0, but I really don't have to write the 0. The B comes down, and then I'm left with 54 minus 4V. I can't simplify it anymore because 54 is a number by itself and negative 4V is a number by itself. I can't do anything with it. Now that I've solved for B, I can take B, and just like we did in that first question, I can substitute it in. So that's what I'm going to do over here. I have 8 times V plus 8 times whatever B is. Well, what's B? B is this long, ugly thing. So that's what I have to substitute in. I'm going to substitute in 54 minus 4V equals 240. Do you notice how now all I see is the letter V? That means I did it correctly. I eliminated that B because of substitution. Then I do the same thing that you guys already told me before. You told me before that I have to distribute. So I'm going to do 8 times 54, which I don't have my calculator next to me. Hey, Google, what's 8 times 54? The answer is 432. Then I've got 8 times negative 4, which is negative 32. And then I have my 240. Now I can combine like terms. So here I have positive 8V. Here I have negative 32V. So that's going to leave me, thank you, that's going to leave me negative 24V plus 432 equals 240. Then I need to move this over. So I'm going to move it over by subtraction because right now I'm adding 432, and we're going to do the inverse or opposite operation, which means subtract. And go ahead and get your calculators to do this. Google's going to help me out a little bit. 192. Hey, Google, what's 192 divided by 24? The answer is 8. Then when I divide both sides, this should be negative, by negative 24, I'm left with positive 8. Okay, so unfortunately that hasn't really helped me at all. All that's done is told me how many kids can ride on a van. Because remember, all the way back up here, V equaled the number of people in a van. So right now, we know that that's 8. But we don't know how many people can ride on the bus. So now we have to do it again. But this time, we're going to plug that 8 in, and we're going to simplify and solve. So I'm going to just rewrite this equation real quick. 4V plus B equals 54. Now here, we're just substituting in V to get B. So here we know V equals 8. So I'm going to put 4 times that 8 plus B for boy, 54. That's not a 6, that's a B. Then I multiply. 4 times 8 is 32. Then I subtract. And I get B equals 22. So I'm still not done yet because it doesn't say, oh no, it does say that's enough. When I solved this problem, I made it a whole lot harder than this. I substituted and found out how many kids went on each van and bus. So that's it. We know that 8 people can go on every single van. And we know that 22 people can go on every single bus. Does your brain hurt? My brain hurts. I feel like we need to take a brain break, but we don't have time for a brain break. So congratulations. You made it through the problem. Let's look at another one. This one actually is not that hard because they give you the system of equations. And on top of giving you the system of equations, all we have to do is analyze what does the system of equations say. That's all we're doing. We're just analyzing. So let's read this together. Leanne runs on the treadmill and rides the exercise bike at the gym to stay in shape. Does that help us do math at all? Nope. That has nothing to do with math. So right away, I'm going to say, guess what? Don't care. I'm going to cross it off. Blah, 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 blah. That doesn't matter. She burns 15 calories per. If you just signed on, make sure you mute your microphone, please. And also, please go in and give me your name and your teacher in the chat box. Okay, how it says 15 calories per minute. Remember, anytime that you see per, it means multiply. And I stutter on purpose to emphasize. So per means to multiply. And that's what they wrote here, 15 per. Then it says it's 9 calories per minute on the bike. So they did T for treadmill, thank you, and P and B for bike. That equals 580 calories all together. Then it says she wants to run 2.5 times, they literally told you multiply, as long on the treadmill. 2.5 times treadmill is that's going to give her what her burn is on the bicycle. So they give us a system of equations. Now we have to say, okay, does it make sense? Well, let's see. They gave it to us already as B equals. So we can skip that whole make everything look pretty. All we need to do is substitute. So I'm going to start over here, and I've got 15T plus 9B equals 580. But we know from this equation here that B has to be 2.5. And it has to be 2.5 times T. So now, when I write everything else out, all I need to do is multiply. And here's what's really cool. I don't even have to distribute because there's no plus or minus with what B equals. B just equals plain old 2.5. So then I have got my 15T here plus, hey Google, what's 9 times 2.5? The answer is 22.5. I was right. Then we combine like terms. Here's a T here and a T here. Hey Google, what's 580 divided by 37.5? The answer is approximately 15.466667. Okay, so let me talk about what I did with Google's help. So first, I multiplied the 9 times the 2.5. That gave me the 22.5. Then I combined like terms. I did 15T plus 22.5T. That allowed me to get the 37.5T. Then I isolated the variable, and I got T has to equal 15.46. But here's what's weird. There's no such thing as 0.46 of an hour, technically. But we do know that there's no such thing as 0.46 second or 46 of a minute, but we know there's 60 seconds in a minute. So what you can do is you can take this and multiply 0.46 times 60, And that's going to give you, believe it or not, 28 seconds. So we know that she can be on T, which is the treadmill, for 15 minutes and 28 seconds. That's what we know. We had to do all of that math. Now we can see, does any of it match up to the questions? So according to the system equations, can Leanne meet her goals? Yeah, she can meet her goals if she's on the treadmill for 15 minutes and 28 seconds. So right away, we can, by process of elimination, we can mark off A and C. Now we see both of these say 1528, but which one equals 1528? Someone already mentioned it, B. So the answer has to be choice B, because 15 minutes and 28 seconds equals treadmill, T time. So that's where that problem comes in. All right, I put some easy ones in here. Great, yay, back to easy. What am I going to do first in this problem? I've got y equals 5x minus 7, and then I've got negative 3x minus 2y minus 12. Who's got what our first step is? Go ahead, throw your mic on, re-engage your brain. What do you got for me? Excellent. I can plug in. We can't combine yet, but we can plug in. Thank you so much for participating. We see that y equals the 5x minus 7. So all I'm going to do is, instead of writing my y, I'm going to write in 5x minus 7. And remember, anytime that we plug in, we always have to put parentheses around it. Now that I've got my parentheses, I can go ahead and distribute. So I've got negative 2 times positive 5, which is negative 10x. I've got negative 2 times negative 7, which is positive 14. And then everything else just comes down. Now, again, I simplify. Negative 3 plus negative 10 is I owe you $3. I owe you 10 more dollars. How much money do I owe you? Negative 13. Then I move that 14 over by subtraction, because the opposite or inverse operation to make that 0 is subtract. And then I divide, because I'm trying to get this x by itself. And when you divide by whatever the number is. You don't do the opposite of what you're dividing by. Whatever number is in front of the x, that's what you divide by. So in this case, it's 13. X equals negative 2. Now that I know x equals negative 2, who's got, what do I do now? Ooh, x does not equal negative 2. X equals positive 2, because a negative divided by a negative is positive. Yep, we plug in 2. That's exactly right. Excellent. So now I'm going to go back to my original equation. Y equals 5x minus 7. Plug in that 2 and solve. So I know that the answer, if I was going to graph this, the two lines would meet up at positive 2, positive 3. Cray cray. Okay, let's look at another one. This other one is another easy, just substitution one. So all we're going to do is, let's get y by itself. We already have a positive y. So to get positive y by itself, we're going to have to do the opposite of subtracting 5x, which is adding 5x. So that leaves us with y equals 13 plus 5x. Now, okay, Aiden, you just muted me, dear. Okay. So now what you need to do is, how it's got the 13 plus 5x. So your teachers sometimes tell you switch it around, put 5x plus 13. I don't do that. Like, whatever, just pay attention to your numbers. But if you feel like you need to do that, you can switch it around. Now that we know the y equals part, then we go back to our substitution. So I've got negative 3x plus 3. Here comes my substitution. I'm going to change colors just to emphasize it. Instead of writing my y, I already know my y is this. 13 plus 5x. Then I keep writing everything else that was up there equals 3. Okay, now I do my distribution. So I've got 3 times 13, which is 39. 3 times 5x, which is 15x. Now, some of your teachers teach you to start writing from the left. I don't do that. I always like to make sure my distribution is correct. So that's why I always do my distribution first, even if it's in the middle of the equation, and then I just write everything down. You do what's best for you, but that's what works best for me. Okay. Sweetie, if you could just mute your microphone, welcome, welcome. That would be great. Okay. Also, if you have not given me your name and teacher, please do that. Okay, we're going to combine like terms. Negative 3x plus 15 is positive 12x. Oops. Then we subtract our 39 from both sides. And then we divide. I know I'm fast for those of you who need calculators. I'm sorry. I just want to make sure I can cover as much of this as I can for you. So when I solve, I'm left with x equals negative 3. So now I'm not done yet. I got to go back to either one of the equations and figure out what y equals. I'm going to go back to that equation that just says y by itself, because y make my work extra hard. And when I say by itself, I mean I'm going to go back to the original equation that y does not have a coefficient. Now I'm going to just substitute my negative 3 in for x. This leaves me positive 15. Subtract 15 from both sides, because 15 minus 15 is 0. And we do it to both sides because we want to be fair. It's kind of like if I was your teacher and I gave one student 100% bonus points just because he wore pants one day to school, and I didn't give anyone else 100% or 100 bonus points. It wouldn't be fair. So whatever you do to one side, you do to the other. It helps keep things balanced. So then that's it. My answer would be negative 3, negative 2 if I were to plug that in. Now, the other thing you can do is you can do these problems graphically if you have access to a graphing calculator. Not all of your questions will. Okay, this is a question that's different than what I put on the review sheet that I got from Miss Owens, but it's the same idea, so I want to just talk about it. Transparently, I didn't like the question she posted, so I'm not showing you how to do it. All right, but this is the same idea. Basically, it says, Katrina and Cedric's teacher gave them a system of linear equations below. They each took a few steps that led to the system of equations shown. Which system has the same solution as the teacher? Here's the coolest thing to do. If, when you look at it, if you have, see here how we have 8x, and see here how we have 8x, and then see here how we have positive, or that was actually negative 16. I made my 8x too big. Try again. So let me make my 8x better. Here's my 8x. Here's my 8x. Check, that matches. Here I have negative 16y. Here I have negative 16y, so that matches. But see how I have 14 here? And down here I just have negative 7. Right away, doesn't work. So right away I can just cross out, it can't be Katrina. It's got to be Cedric, but we have to prove more of it than just that. So let's take a look at what happens. Here you can see there's the negative x that matches. Sure, absolutely. So the question is, can I repeat this one more time? So what we're doing is we're trying to see which student has the correct matching set of equations. So I notice if I look at Katrina, well, I see that Katrina has an 8x here, and I see her teacher has an 8x. Then I see that Katrina has a negative 16y, that's good, and her teacher has a negative 16y. But then look what happens. Katrina somehow got a negative 7, but her teacher had a 14. You can't just multiply by 2. If you multiplied by 2, technically you'd be multiplying by negative 2. But if you multiplied by negative 2, each one of these things would also have to be multiplied by -2. So if she multiplied by -2, technically what you're thinking of is she divided. Each one of these things she would have to divide by. So let me show you. We have 8x, -16y, and +14. If I have this, again, the way that I get from 8x to 8x is I multiply by 1. The way that I get from -16 to -16 is I multiply by 1. The way that I get to 14 to -7 is I actually have to divide by -2. Because I did not do the same thing, that's why, oh, I'm sorry, thank you. That's why I had to make sure it couldn't be Katrina, okay? So as Aiden already helped us with, that is what happened with Katrina. Let's look, or with Cedric, let's take a look. For Cedric, the first equations match. Here's my -x, here's my -x. Here's my +5y, here's my +5y. Here's my -3, here's my -3. So right now, Cedric's first equation is perfect. Now we have to see, okay, how did Cedric go from 8x minus 16y equals 14? How did that become -4x plus 8y equals -7? Well, let's take a look. Here I start with a positive, and here I start with a negative. So I know that whatever I'm doing, it has to be with a negative. Then if I'm at 8 and I go to 4, well, that's easy. 8 divided by 4 is 2. So all Cedric did was he did 8x from the teacher, divided it by -2, and got -4x. So then I say, okay, well, is that the same thing here? What is -16 divided by -2? Well, we said 8 divided by -2 equaled -4, so that was right. -16 divided by -2 equals 8. That's what Cedric got. That's right. Then 14 divided by -2 gives me -7. So that's right. So that's why Cedric's is correct. You don't really want to go from Cedric up to the teacher and multiply, only because we know the teacher is correct. So we're seeing which one of the other ones is also correct. All right, moving on. Let's look at this next one. Graph the system of equations. You guys got about 20 minutes. Please hang in with me for 20 more minutes. Hopefully you're learning something. All right, graph the system of linear equations. Then they give it to you. Okay. First of all, let's look at where some things are. Now, some people like to immediately solve and just see, oh, let me find the perfect point. I don't do that. Especially if it's a multiple choice question, it's way easier to just check out the intercepts. So if I look here, I remember that y equals mx plus b. And when y equals mx plus b, I remember that m stands for the slope and b stands for the y-intercept. So in this case, I know my y-intercept, my b term, has to equal -2. So I'm going to look and say, okay, which of these graphs has -2 is where the line crosses? Well, here, this line has -2 perfectly, the line crosses. Here's -2. There's no line going through -2. So right now, I can eliminate choice B. Let's look at choice C. Here's a line. Here's -2. It goes through it. Yep, it could be that one. Here's -2. Now, -2 is in the system, but it is not an intercept, so it can't be choice D. So right now, I've eliminated to either A or C. Now, the next thing, A and C are exactly the same, except for the shading. So I'm sure your teachers teach you this too, but this is my trick that I do. I pick the easiest inequality. The easiest inequality is one for me that doesn't have fractions. So here it is. Then I plug in the point 0, 0. And I plug in the origin because it's easy. So here's my 0, 0. If I plug in 0 for y, remember this is my x, this is my y, I'm going to put 0 here. Is 0 greater than 3 times 0 minus 2? Well, let's see. 3 times 0 is 0. Is 0 greater than 0 minus 2? Well, 0 minus 2 is negative 2. So my question is 0 greater than negative 2? Yes, it is. Because it is, this is what gets shaded. So here's my point. Is it true? It is true. So that's why this is my answer. It's choice C. That's why we shaded in this part, because 0, 0 fell in that. Does anyone need me to do that part one more time? Okay. So basically all I did is, once I figured out which my graphs could be, I plugged in 0, 0, and I solved. And when I plug in 0, 0, I got 0 is greater than or equal to negative 2. So then I'm saying, is this true? If it's true, then I'm going to do the shading in. If it's false, then it's going to be the other way around. So because 0, 0 falls right here and 0 is bigger than negative 2, I need to make sure that I shade in that region. And that's why I'm left with choice C. All right, what are the equations that make up the system, and what is the solution? Okay, it's a little bit tricky to see. I will tell you that, let's look at this line first. This line, the intercept is at 1. So we know we've got y equals mx plus b. We know the intercept is at 1. Now we just have to determine the slope. We determine the slope by going, in this case, up 1 over 1. And I really don't think I can make this any bigger. Let me see. I mean, I can make it bigger, but it might still be blurry. Okay, so here I have it going from positive 1 to positive 1. So rise, up 1 over run. So that's just going to stay this, y equals x plus 1, because the slope is 1, and with a slope of 1, you don't need to write it. For the second equation, which would be this one, I have my intercept is at 3. So I've got my y equals mx plus b. I know my intercept is at 3, and now I just have to figure out the slope. To do slope is rise over run. You often will hear, or it's change in y over change in x. So for me, I notice that this point is perfectly on the graph. So I can go up 1 over 2. So that's all I'm going to write here, up 1 over 2, and everything else comes out. So that is the equations that make up the system. The solution is where those 2 points intersect. So if I come up here, my solution is going to be right here. And that would be at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So these are my equations. And my solution is there. Great question. How did I get 1/2? All I did is I picked a point on the line, and I figured how many up is it and how many over is it. That's it. So if I start here, I went up 1 over 1, 2. Up 1 over 2. That's all you're doing. Up, over, up, over, up, over. So if I had a line like this that had this point here, and my other point was all the way up here, pretending it's a straight line, I would do the same process. How many up? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up. How many over? 1, 2. So this slope would be 5/2. If I had a point here and I was going all the way down here, I would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over, which would really give you 4/5. I made those up to give you an example. That's it. Oh, how did I get 4/5? 4/5 is right here. So 4, 5 happens, where do these two lines meet? Those two lines meet at this point. That's where the 2 points cross. So where they cross means both things are true. So that point, when I look on it, it's hard for you to see, but I would go 1, 2, 3. The x coordinate is 4 and the y coordinate is 5. That's how we got 4, 5. Good question. All right, let's go on. This question is a pain in the tush. I'm just giving you a heads up. Pain in the bunners. It's a hard question. It's mostly a hard question for me because I did not like how they did not give us a scale on the graph, but shout out to Miss Munoz. She helped me out with this problem. Okay, the girls' swim team is hosting a fundraiser. They would like to raise at least $500. So $500 is the minimum that they want. Would they be happy with 400? No. Would they be happy with 600? Yes. Would they be happy with exactly 500? Yes. That's why whatever they sell has to be greater than or equal to 500. So let's see what they're selling. They're selling candles. Well, let's put C for candles for $5. So we know that C equals candles. And we know that it costs $5. So I'm going to put 5C because this 500 represents money. So everything here, that 5 has to represent money. Then it says flower arrangements, F, are selling for $6. Then it says the girls estimate that at most they will sell 200 items. So let's think of it. Well, what are they selling? They're selling, whoops, this should say flowers. They're selling candles and they're selling flowers. Now, if they sell more than 400, no. So that doesn't help us because we think they're going to sell less than 400 items. So 200 is the most that they could possibly sell. They could sell exactly 200, but the most they can sell is 200. So if they sell 201, nope, they didn't think so. If they sold 198, yeah, that's fine. It's less than 200. If they sold exactly 200, that's good too. So that's where that comes in. This is the tip I got from Munoz that I totally blanked on and I loved it. Listen, it's really crazy to draw a graph with C and F. So instead of C and F, guess what we're going to do? Turn it into X and Y. So this is going to be 5X plus 6Y has to be greater than or equal to 500. Here, we know that X plus Y has to be less than or equal to 200. So now all I need to do is solve. And the way that we're going to solve is we're going to have to set each one of those into being what's like Y equals MX plus B form. So for this equation, I'm going to subtract 5X from both sides. So that leaves me, these cancel, with 6Y has to be greater than or equal to negative 5X plus 500. Then I have to divide each side, and not just each side, but each one of these by 6. So that leaves me with Y has to be greater than or equal to negative 5/6x. And then, totally stealing her notes on this one, 500 divided by 6 is going to give you 83.3 repeating. So let me say that one more time. First, we set up the equations. Setting up the equations was super easy because all we did was write on the problem. C for candles, F for flowers. We're talking about money, so $5 times however many candles they sell plus $6 times however many flowers they sell needs to be more than $500. That's how we got that big equation. The smaller equation was easier. We know that the only two things that they're selling are candles and flowers, just like our basketball team. Our men's basketball team is selling popcorn. It's not like I can go to them and say, hey, let me buy socks. No, they're not selling socks. They're selling popcorn. So what types of popcorn are they selling? Peanut butter popcorn, caramel popcorn, Chicago popcorn, those different types. Here, the swim team is only selling candles and flowers. So C plus F, and the most items they think they can sell is 200. So now, again, we need to isolate the variable. We want to get y by itself, so I'm going to subtract x from both sides. Now, and another problem, you saw me not put the x first. Here I am putting the x first just so it's in the proper form. So then, now I can plot my point. Now, I did a scale that was way too high. Munoz suggested, shout out to her, that I should use a scale of 25. So I'm going to make this scale out of 25. And then going across, again, I'm going to keep the same scale. So 25, 50, 75, 100, 125. I know my writing's getting yuckier, but we're almost there. And again, the X value is always the horizontal. So these are how many candles I sell. And these are how many flowers I sell, or floral arrangements. Okay. You guys are doing good. You're champions. Now I need to graph it. Well, here, I know my y-intercept is going to be 83.3. So I'm going to plot that here. Then I know I have to go down 5 and over 6. Well, I'm not going to go into all that trouble. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to, instead of putting x equals 0, I'm going to set y equals to 0 and solve it. And the reason why I'm going to do this is it is going to be so much easier to draw a straight line than have to deal with slope with the units of 25. So I'm going to subtract 83.3 from both sides. Hey Google, what's 83.3 times 6?
The answer is 499.8.
So that's going to give me my 500. Then I divide both sides by -5, and I'm left with 100. So now I know my intercepts. So it's going to be a lot easier for me to connect those lines. Same thing here. Here, I know 200 is my first intercept. But then what I'm going to do is, instead of making my life hard, I'm just going to substitute 0 in for y and solve it. Now, here's a trick. See how this is a negative? Anytime you multiply or divide by a negative, you got to flip the signs. So now I'm going to say 200 has to be greater than or equal to x. So I'm going to go 200 to 200. And my answer is what's in between those lines. That question was beast. I'm so sorry. I wish there was an easier way to do it. That's pretty much all they could do. Okay? So, yeah, there's no other way you can do it. So in order for them to do it, they have to sell at least 0 to 83 arrangements or any combination thereof. Okay. 2 more questions and then you're free. Stay with me for 2 questions. You guys are awesome. All right, next question. Way easier. All the hard questions are gone. Decide if the following systems of equations has a single solution, no solution, or infinite solutions, and solve the system. All right, here, there's 2 ways to do it. I think the easiest way is to set one of these equal to y. So I'm going to take x plus y equals 1 and subtract x from both sides. So I'm left with y equals -x plus 1. Now I'm going to take it and plug it in, which you already know how to do. Here we have x plus -x plus 1 equals 5. So let's simplify. Well, x minus x is 0 plus 1 equals 5. Well, does 1 equal 5? No. So it is no solutions. Basically, all you do is plug one into the other. If it matches perfectly, then you're good. No solutions in this case because 1 could never equal 5. All right, describe and correct the error in solving the system of linear equations. All right, well, here's our x minus 3y equals 6. We're going to isolate the x, so we're going to add 3y to both sides. Sometimes we get the y by itself, but it's just as easy instead for us to do it that way. So now I'm left with x, these cancel, 3y plus 6. Then I'm going to substitute this into my other equation. So I've got 2x minus 3y equals 3. Put in the 3y plus 6. Solve by distributing. Remember, I always do my distribution first. Here it worked out because my distribution was first in order. Yeah, what's your question? Hi. Well, thank you. Do you have a question? Then I'm going to subtract 12 from both sides. Divide. Hi, your speaker is on and everybody can hear you. Okay, so then I can't even pull up who's talking. Okay, I just turned your speaker off. So now we know that y equals 3. So you guys all know we've done this so many times. What's my last step? Plug it in. So my answer is 15.3, except that's different than what I got earlier today. All of a sudden, I'm doubting my rushing math. 2 times 6y, 12, 3y, 3y, 12, 9, 3. Nope, that's right. All right, so there you go, and that is how you do the problems. Now, your test, I don't know any details about your test. I am not an algebra teacher. Let's see. I have no idea what she did. All right. That's the best that I can come up with for there. So I want to just tell you, you guys have been great. We've been on for an hour. If you have not already typed in your name or how did I get Y, I substituted. And I kept looking at this because I'm thinking transparently, I think I messed something up, but I don't know what I messed up. Guys, I want to do this problem one more time because there is a big piece of me. If you want to get out, you can get out. But I got something different earlier today when I did this problem. No, that's correct. All right. So I don't do this every day. I usually do it when Keisha. Thank you, Miss Owens. What did I miss out? 3 minus 12 is -9. Thank you. That makes more sense. Owens to the rescue. So this is -3. So when I plug this back up here, I get -3. So this is -9. There we go. And then -9 plus 6 is -3. Yay, Miss Owens, you're my hero. Okay, so there you go, guys. Make sure you put your name in. I'm going to send this list out. That is what I've got for you. If you have any questions, see your teachers tomorrow. Here's the thing. You can do more than you ever thought was possible. So please, please, please look at some of the slides again. I'm going to post these on later on today so that you'll be able to look at them. Hopefully in the next 10 or 15 minutes, they'll be back on gwinnettemath.com so you can go through the notes. But you can do so much more than you ever thought possible. Please believe in yourself. You're already champs for being here. You guys are awesome. And that's it. So thank you. I'm going to download your chat window and we're good. So you guys can feel free to sign off because Algebra 2 is coming on in about 20 minutes. And who wants to stay for that? Well, not me, but I have to.